Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a story that's, well, literally older than writing itself. We're talking about Gilgamesh, the legendary king of Uruk.
Hmm.
And specifically, we're looking at this claim from back in 2003, a potential discovery that should have been absolutely massive news, finding his sealed tomb.
Right. And the thing is, this site, it's been effectively locked down for more than 20 years now. Just silence, wrapped up in politics, red tape, and honestly, some really wild rumors.
Exactly. So for you listening, if you like trying to sort out the media hype from what might actually be happening on the ground, this Gilgamesh tomb story is fascinating.
It really is a perfect storm. So our goal here is to unpack what we actually know from the sources, the facts behind the initial discovery claim, the perfectly valid reasons why digging stopped, but also these more sensational, almost fear-driven stories that have kept it untouched.
Yeah, we're peeling back the layers, the history, the archaeology, the fear, the politics, all crashing together in the Iraqi desert. Let's dive in. Hashtag I, the king, the epic, and the geographical clue. Okay, first things first. Gilgamesh himself.
Yeah.
He's the hero of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is like the oldest piece of literature we have. Full stop.
Right. And the epic paints him as this larger-than-life figure, two-thirds god, one-third human, driven by this intense fear of death.
He goes on this whole quest for immortality, doesn't he?
It does, and, spoiler alert, he fails.
Right.
But what he learns, supposedly, is that true immortality comes from, well, achievements, like building the incredible walls around his city, Uruk. That's his legacy.
Yeah, it's tempting to just file him under myth, right, given the whole two-thirds god thing.
Well, yeah, but most historians actually lean towards thinking a real Gilgamesh did exist, a powerful king ruling Uruk back in Sumer, which is modern-day Iraq, probably around 2700 BC.
So a real historical core, even if the epic adds layers of myth?
Exactly. And crucially, even within those myths, particularly in other Sumerian texts like the Death of Gilgamesh, there's a very specific detail about his burial. A geographical clue.
And this is the really interesting part, the burial itself.
Yes. The texts say his tomb wasn't just on land, it was built beneath the Euphrates River.
Wow. How would that even work?
Well, according to the story, it was a huge undertaking. They supposedly diverted the entire river temporarily.
Seriously.
That's the legend. Divert the water, build the tomb complex in the dry riverbed, and then let the river flow back over it, sealing it completely underwater in silt.
Okay, I have to ask, though. Trying to find a tomb based on a description from a poem, a myth,
Yeah.
that sounds, well, almost impossible from an archaeological standpoint.
Normally, yes, it would be. Except for one key thing. The Euphrates River hasn't stayed put. Over 4,000 years, its course has shifted a lot. It's snaked across the landscape. So the place where the river used to flow, where Gilgamesh was supposedly buried, well, large parts of that ancient riverbed are now dry land.
Okay, so that geographical change suddenly makes the myth potentially searchable.
Precisely. It opened the door for modern techniques to actually test that ancient description. #2, the discovery claim, 2003.
Right, so fast forward millennia, we're in the early 2000s, so there's a German-led team, specifically involving a geophysicist, Jörg Fassbinder. They're working near the ruins of Uruk.
And crucially, as you said earlier, they weren't digging. They were using remote sensing.
Technology like magnetometers.
Yeah.
Ground-penetrating radar.
Exactly that. This tech is great for archaeology because it lets you see underground without disturbing anything. It detects anomalies. For instance, ancient mud bricks, like those used in Sumerian buildings, have a different magnetic signature than the river sediment around them.
So you can basically map buried structures.
You can. And the results were, well, pretty startling. They found evidence of a large buried structure right in the area of the old Euphrates riverbed. Estimates put it around the size of a football field. It looked like a complex. It had features that suggested corridors, maybe rooms, even a potential central chamber. It fit the description of a major burial structure, maybe even royal.
And this is where the media storm starts, right? It's April 2003.
Oh, yeah. The BBC runs with the headline, "Gilgamesh Tomb Believed Found." And it just explodes globally. Instant sensation.
But there was a catch, wasn't there? Something lost in translation. Tell us about that, because it's key to how this whole thing ballooned.
It really is. Fassbinder himself later tried to pump the brakes a bit. He explained that when speaking in German, he'd used a specific grammatical form, the conjunctive.
Okay. What does that mean in practice?
It basically implies possibility or resemblance. It translates more like it could be the tomb, or it looks like the site described, rather than a definite statement. It conveys academic caution.
Ah, so not we found it, but This looks intriguingly like it might be it.
Exactly. But that subtlety, that crucial maybe, it vanished in the English reporting. It became this declarative, almost certain statement, believed found, a tiny linguistic shift, but it created this huge runaway narrative.
So they had this intriguing data, maybe a tomb, maybe just a large structure they reported to the Iraqi authorities. But the timing, April 2003.
The timing couldn't have been worse. The U.S.-led invasion of Iraq had begun just the month before, in March.
Chaos.
Absolute chaos. The country was immediately plunged into instability, violence, the breakdown of government, any plans for a careful follow-up excavation immediately off the table. It was paused indefinitely.
And that pause has basically lasted ever since.
Pretty much. 20 years and counting. No official published dig has ever followed up on that radar data. The whole thing just got frozen in time, right at the peak of public interest.
Which brings us to the big question. Why is it still sealed off? When you look into it, there seem to be two very different sets of reasons pulling against each other.
That's a good way to put it. You've got the practical, logistical, perfectly understandable reasons on one side, and then you have something else, the more mythic, fear-based reasons on the other.
Let's start with the practical stuff, the non-conspiracy reasons.
Okay. Well, first off, the sheer logistics are daunting. Southern Iraq, the area around Uruk, has faced ongoing instability pretty much constantly since 2003. War, insurgency, political complexity.
So just getting a team in there safely would be a nightmare.
A huge nightmare. You'd need massive international funding. You'd need serious security, probably armed escorts. You'd need permits from various levels of Iraqi government, which can be challenging to navigate. It's a bureaucratic and security minefield.
Makes sense. What else?
Then there's the academic caution that Fassbender originally hinted at. Remember, remote sensing only shows shapes, anomalies, that football field-sized structure. It could be a tomb. It could also be a different kind of building or even a natural geological formation that just happens to look regular.
Right. You don't want to launch a massive, expensive dig based on a maybe.
Exactly. You risk wasting huge resources. And worse, you risk damaging something ancient and important that has nothing to do with Gilgamesh. Archaeologists have to be sure, or as sure as possible, before they break ground.
And there are ethical considerations too, I imagine.
Yeah.
Preservation.
Absolutely. Think about it. If there are organic remains in there, wood, cloth, maybe even a body that have been sealed in a stable environment for nearly 5,000 years, exposing them suddenly to air, moisture, temperature changes, they could literally disintegrate in hours.
Wow.
Sometimes the most responsible act of preservation is to leave something undisturbed until you're absolutely certain you can handle it correctly. Plus, you have local cultural and religious sensitivities. These aren't just archaeological sites. For some people, they're sacred ground.
Okay, so those are solid, real-world reasons for caution. Instability, cost, scientific uncertainty, preservation, ethics. But then there's the other side, the whispers, the local fears, the curse narrative.
Yeah. And this is where it gets really interesting. Now, Mesopotamian traditions didn't really have the kind of formal inscribed curses like you see on, say, Egyptian tomb.
Yeah, disturb this tomb and face the wrath of Anubis type stuff.
Not quite like that, but there was definitely a strong belief in protective magic, in powerful incantations placed around the graves of important figures, especially kings. The idea was to invoke divine punishment, disease, madness, chaos on anyone foolish enough to desecrate the site.
And this isn't just ancient history. These beliefs persist.
Very much so, at least locally. There are these persistent, though unconfirmed, stories from people in the area. Tales about animals acting strangely near the site, refusing to graze there, dogs howling incessantly, herders deliberately taking their flocks on long detours to avoid that specific patch of land identified by the radar.
Wow. So a real sense of unease around the location.
Definitely. And it goes beyond unease. There are darker rumors too, again, totally unverified, but stories circulate about small teams, maybe survey crews, maybe looters. It's unclear trying to set up equipment near the anomaly in the mid-2000s. And
supposedly, they were struck down by sudden, violent illness, intense nausea, high fevers, forcing them to flee the site immediately. Now, could it be coincidence, environmental factors, mass hysteria? Maybe. But the effect is real. It adds to this aura of dread, this feeling that the place is somehow protected or dangerous.
This fear narrative really kicks the door open for claims that go way beyond archaeology, doesn't it? The official silence created a vacuum.
It absolutely did. And into that vacuum rushed these extraordinary stories, suggesting the site wasn't left entirely alone. There are claims, often attributed to anonymous insiders or researchers like Graham Hancock who allege footage exists, that the site was partially accessed, maybe between 2004 and 2006.
Accessed how? Like a secret dig.
That's the allegation, that a temporary breach was made, and according to these accounts, they found a sealed inner chamber. Inside, supposedly, was a huge stone sarcophagus covered in cuneiform writing.
Okay, that sounds like something out of a movie. It gets better. The inscriptions allegedly carried a stark warning. Something along the lines of, "Leave this vessel sealed, don't open it until the stars are aligned again."
Whoa! Okay, that's pure mythological dread right there. The stars are aligned.
Classic trope, isn't it? And apparently this warning, combined perhaps with other weird occurrences, was enough. Local workers allegedly refused point blank to go any further. There are even darker rumors that one person involved died mysteriously within weeks.
This is escalating quickly. But the claims about what might actually be inside the sarcophagus, that's where it goes completely off the rails, right?
That's where it enters the realm of, let's say, fringe speculation. The most explosive claim, supposedly coming from someone who translated the cuneiform, was that the text didn't just describe Gilgamesh as a king, it described him as a giant.
A giant? How giant?
The figures thrown around are usually 8 or 9 feet tall, and not just tall, but somehow preserved. The description allegedly mentioned him being held in waiting, with divine breath suspended in stone, and a heart that does not decay.
Okay, so we're talking preserved body, potential genetic anomaly, maybe even hinting at things like the Nephilim from other traditions.
That's exactly where the speculation went. A massive, perfectly preserved, possibly non-human or hybrid being waiting in a tomb.
And it doesn't stop at biology, does it? There are technology theories too.
Nope. Other claims suggest the sarcophagus itself is active, emitting low-frequency vibrations constantly, or generating such a strong magnetic field that electronic instruments fail near it.
Suggesting it contains
Objects of unknown origin, advanced ancient technology. Some theories even propose the tomb isn't a tomb at all, but a containment device, a lock, designed to keep some kind of ancient chaos, or maybe angry deities like Enlil or Nergal, safely bottled up.
unleashing chaos if opened. Okay, now let's bring in the political context again. The timing. Discovery announced April 2003. Invasion March 2003.
That timing is the fuel for the biggest conspiracy theory surrounding the site.
Which is
That the U.S. invasion wasn't just about regime change or WMDs. That a secondary, perhaps primary objective was to secure this site and whatever it contained, be it a giant or ancient tech before anyone else could. A high-tech tomb raid under the cover of war.
Is there any evidence for that beyond the timing?
Well, you have persistent local accounts, again, difficult to verify, but stories spread that U.S. military units moved in very quickly, secured the specific area around the Uruk anomaly, and even set up a base nearby, sometimes called Camp Babylon, essentially right on top of the potential big site.
And rumors of nighttime activity.
Yes. Whispers of digging, of large, heavily guarded, covered objects being removed under cover of darkness. Now, we have to be careful. This is anecdotal, but we do know for a fact, it's documented, that during the chaos of the invasion, Iraq's National Museum in Baghdad was looted, devastatingly looted, and one of the high-profile items stolen then, the Gilgamesh Dream Tablet.
Ah, so a confirmed instance of a priceless Gilgamesh artifact being targeted during that exact period.
Exactly. That tablet was eventually recovered by U.S. authorities years later and returned to Iraq in 2021. But the fact that Gilgamesh artifacts were known targets lends a certain plausibility, or at least resonance, to the local fears that the tomb site itself was also a high-priority objective for someone during the invasion's fog of war. That information vacuum was just perfectly primed for these kinds of extraordinary stories to take root. Hashtag tag V, the unresolved visual anomaly.
Okay, so the site remains sealed, the rumors swirl.
Mm.
But the story doesn't completely end there, does it? There's a more recent kind of intriguing wrinkle involving satellite imagery.
That's right. This comes from Dr. Kelvin Long, who published observations fairly recently in 2025. He noticed something odd in satellite photos of the Uruk area.
What did he see?
A geoglyph, a large pattern marked on the ground, visible in images going back decades, even to 1984, apparently.
A pattern? What kind of pattern?
And this is the kicker. Long claims the marking looks remarkably like the classic Assyrian image of Gilgamesh himself, you know, the one where he's holding a lion and a snake, right near the location of Fassbinder's anomaly.
Wait, a giant Gilgamesh symbol on the ground, visible from space, right near the supposed tomb. But wouldn't that have washed away? I thought Fassbinder said.
Exactly, that's the puzzle. Fassbinder, the original geophysicist, was quite clear. He argued that the ground there is river floodplain sediment. Any surface marking like a geoglyph should be obliterated by seasonal rains and floods within a year, maybe two. It shouldn't survive for decades.
So how could this image persist since the 80s?
Well, Dr. Long has a counter theory. He suggests the geoglyph isn't just on the surface. His idea is that it's a manifestation, as he put it, of a deeper, buried stone structure.
Like the pattern is built underneath, and as the topsoil erodes, the pattern keeps showing through. It sort of renews itself.
That's the hypothesis, that this massive structure, perhaps part of the tomb complex itself, is acting like a template, subtly shaping the surface above it over long periods. If true, it would imply the location wasn't just chosen, it was deliberately and enduringly marked.
Which just adds another layer of mystery, suggesting maybe there is something significant buried there, something meant to be found. Or perhaps avoided. Hashtag outro. So here we are, the supposed Tomb of Gilgamesh. It really is this perfect convergence, isn't it? Ancient history, modern conflict, scientific caution, political gridlock, and this deep, resonant mythological fear, all keeping it sealed.
Absolutely. That silence from official channels, ever since 2003, it just created this void. And human nature, well, it abhors a vacuum. So the void got filled with these incredible stories, these anxieties, these possibilities. It ensures the mystery continues, and maybe the hesitation, too.
It really makes you wonder, what if those ancient texts, the ones describing the river burial, weren't just stories? What if they were accurate? And what if the tomb wasn't just a memorial for a dead king? What if it really was meant as a lock?
That's the unsettling question, isn't it?
We know the original Gilgamesh, the one in the epic, failed to find eternal life. His legacy was fame, his story. But if this tomb, this sealed place, does hold something extraordinary, a preserved giant, lost knowledge, ancient tech, what would discovering it really mean for us? Would our legacy be the fame of finding it? Or would it be? Well, the consequences of opening a door that maybe, just maybe, was sealed for a very good reason.